This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. As there was no specific teleportation array between the two cities, Yunshao and the others were only teleported out from an approximate area of more than 300,000 miles, and they were still some distance away from their real destination. Led by Shuai Junwei and Yunshao, the seven of them soon landed in a deserted place, which was a continuous stretch of barren valley. Shuai Junwei took out an astrolabe and started to set the location. In the vast heavenly martial arts realm, except for the cities where humans lived, most of the places were sparsely populated and vast. If one could not determine the direction, no matter how strong one was, it would be difficult to fly out of this wilderness. Shuai Junwei pointed at the canyon in front of them and said, "It's in this direction." The distance to the target is less than 20,000 li. 20,000 miles was an extremely long distance, but it was within a reasonable range for such a general teleportation. Yunshao frowned and said, "Not only is this canyon barren, but all the spirit chi is also barren. It can be regarded as a rare place with scarce spirit chi in the eastern region. Why did you Yixian choose to die here? Is the news false?" Shuai Junwei was stunned for a moment. He started to think and said, "It's impossible to say for sure before it's explored, but this place is definitely the place where an almighty warrior transformed. This has been confirmed many times, but no one has been able to go deep into the hinterlands." "I hope I didn't come in vain," Yunshao said with a nod. All seven of them were martial emperors. As they flew along the canyon, the terrain of the entire canyon appeared below them. Yunshao kept observing the changes in the terrain, and he could not help but frown slightly. Finally, on a protruding mountain wall, Yunshao turned and flew down, landing in front of it. Looking down from the sky, this mountain wall was like a city wall that stretched across the ground for thousands of miles, with varying heights. The people of the Shuai family all frowned, expressing extreme dissatisfaction at his sudden departure from the group. Although Yunshao had amazing talent and a bright future, he was only a one-star martial emperor at the moment. It was already very nice of them to be polite to him, but they did not expect him to keep a straight face all day long and ignore them. Feeling angry, they stopped in the air and snorted coldly. On the other hand, Shuai Junwei was more open-minded, and his vision was far better than those people. From the timing he grasped when he killed Xian Shoshing and his extreme attempt to win over Yunshao, it could be seen that this man had the mind and bearing of a hero. "Young Master Yun, what's wrong?" While the other five men were still standing coldly in the air with disdainful looks on their faces, Shuai Junwei flew down and landed next to Yunshao, asking in surprise. Yunshao remained silent as he gently stroked the mountain wall with his hand. Suddenly, he threw a punch and punched through the wall with a bang, revealing a hole. Lord Yunshao is indeed formidable, punching a hole in the stone wall with one punch. "Impressive, impressive." A member of the Shuai family in the sky immediately began to sneer. The other people also looked at each other and smiled, not hiding their disdain at all. Shuai Junwei's face darkened, and he shouted angrily, "All of you shut up. Whoever dares to speak in such a strange tone will have 5 years of their resources deducted." The expressions of the 5 people in the air immediately changed drastically. They revealed looks of disbelief. They simply couldn't believe that the clan leader would deduct 5 years of their supplies because of this. In any sect, martial emperor powerhouses would be provided with unlimited cultivation resources. In other words, they would be given as much as they could use because the importance of a martial emperor was self-evident. If the supply was cut off for 5 years, it would mean that the martial emperor would have to rest for 5 years and would not need to cultivate for 5 years. If the martial emperor did not fight and rob or find ways to obtain resources on his own, he would basically be crippled and would be stuck at his current realm for the rest of his life. Therefore, the 5 people in the sky couldn't believe that Shuai Junwei would make such a decision. However, with the dignity of a clan leader, the 5 of them really didn't dare to say anything. However, the resentment and disdain on their faces grew even stronger. Shuai Junwei also had some complaints in his heart. He did not know what Yunshao was up to, and he never cared about his face. So, he had to ask again, Lord Yunshao, did you discover anything? Yunshao wiped his hand on the wall and said, this mountain wall that stretches across thousands of miles is not formed by the terrain, but man-made. What? Shuai Junwei's body trembled. He was obviously shocked by this conclusion. He also touched the mountain wall with his hand and asked suspiciously, how is this possible? It's just as Lord Yunshao said. The spiritual energy here is so thin that it's comparable to the southern mountain range. How can there be man-made buildings here? Moreover, the mountain walls that he had touched were all pieces of congealed soil, no different from the entire earth. A small piece of soil would fall off with a light pull. Yunshao said, that's because the surface of this wall has been eroded too much, so it looks no different from the earth and mountains. If you touch the middle of the wall with your hand, you will find that this wall is made of extremely hard rock. This kind of stone is not rare, and it is a 6th-tier material called the luminous flying stone. It can be found in many places in the entire eastern region. During the Big Dipper sex competition, the largest arena was made of these flying jadeite stones, which already showed the great wealth of the northern scorpion sect. Shuai Junwei was also from the eastern region, so he naturally knew about it. His expression changed drastically, and he cried out in horror, Lord Yunxiao's meaning is that this mountain wall that stretches across 1,000 miles is all cast from tier 6 jade-light flying stones? Yunxiao also found it a little unbelievable, but the fact was right in front of him. He smiled wryly and said, that's what I meant. How is this possible? No. Shuai Junwei shook his head, if we use 6th grade stone to build 1,000 miles, even the Holy Region and the Sea of Soul Formation might not have the financial resources. Yunxiao flew a few more miles forward and blasted the stone wall open. In the thick stone layer, the heart of the luminous flying stone was revealed. Shuai Junwei followed them all the way. Although he still didn't believe it, the truth in front of him made him waver. The other 5 people also revealed strange expressions when they heard this. They didn't believe it no matter what. One of them snorted. Perhaps the mountain walls here have always been like this. The outside is made of congealed earth, and the inside is made of jadeite flying stones. Yunxiao turned to look at the man and said, do you think that the shit in your brain is already inside? You were born like this, with a pig's head on the outside and a bag of shit on the inside? You coward. The martial artist flew into a rage and was about to flare up, but he was glared at by Shuai Junwei. Shuai Junwei's sharp eyes immediately suppressed his anger. Lord Yunxiao, Shuai Junwei said, could it be that this is a sparkling stone mine vein that was directly exposed from the ground, thus forming such a stone wall that spans 1,000 miles? Although the possibility of what you said is extremely low, Yunxiao said, I can't rule it out. However, unless it's a super large mine, it wouldn't be connected in such a straight line without any chasms in the middle. But if it's a super large mine, then only an extremely small part of it is revealed. The place we're standing on should be an endless stream of jadeite flying rocks. Shuai Junwei was shocked, and he couldn't suppress his joy. It must be a super big mine. I'm really rich this time. Shuai Junwei felt that he had been taken care of by the heavens during this period. First, he had taken over all the properties of the Xian family, and then he had found such a huge mine, all of which were closely related to Yunxiao. It seems that Yunxiao is my lucky star. I must build a good relationship with him. No matter what, he refused to believe that the mountain wall was man-made. Instead, he thought that there was a super large mine under his feet. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed, Lord Junwei, Yunxiao said with a smile. If you don't believe me, you can try to split the earth all the way. All right. Shuai Junwei laughed. Let's see if Lord Yunxiao's words are correct or if this one's guess is correct. His heroic spirit reached the clouds as he laughed out loud. A treasured sword that emitted a cold light appeared in his hand. He aimed at the mountain wall and slashed down at it from a distance of several dozen meters. The sword light directly sank into the ground, and a crack formed, which began to extend into the distance. Boom, boom, boom. A slight tremor came from the ground. Due to the long passage of time, the parallel mountain walls had also collapsed. With his sword, Shuai Junwei's sword cut open a few miles and a few hundred meters deep. It was like a gash on the ground, revealing the flesh inside. The 7 of them flew down and continued to fly forward through the crack. The 7 of them were all martial supremes with extremely powerful divine senses. They had already memorized the material of the jade light flying stone and were able to distinguish the stones in the earth vein one by one. However, all of them had extremely grave expressions on their faces. Flying all the way to the end of the mountain wall, he only occasionally discovered some scattered bits of sparkling flying stone material. This, on the other hand, proved that the mountain wall was man-made, so there were some crushed stones left behind. This time, the Shuai family's people were all silent. This truly unbelievable thing had happened in front of their eyes. If this mountain wall was really man-made, then this canyon area must have been a prosperous place many years ago. Yunxiao's lips curled into a smile as he narrowed his eyes and said, "Things are getting more and more interesting. The distribution of spiritual qi in the realm of heavenly martial arts is like the landscape of mountains and rivers, very difficult to change. If there was a prosperous city here a long time ago, it would have been a place with extremely rich spiritual qi, but now things have reversed and it has become a scarce place. I now believe that this might really be the land of Yu Yixian's feathering. He must have discovered something." He smiled indifferently. The commander-in-chief's face also turned solemn. If Yunxiao's speculation was true, the secret of this place was very likely to be earth-shaking. The rest of the people also shut their mouths, and their attitude toward Yunxiao improved a little. The group of 7 continued to fly forward, and after a few hours, the color of the landscape changed. The original yellow soil gradually turned red, and the entire earth seemed to be burning red, bright and beautiful. "Lord Junwei," Yunxiao suddenly said. "How far are we from our destination?" Shuai Junwei took out the time-fixing plate and looked at it. "We should be able to reach the outer region after roughly 9,000 li." "Outer area?" Yunxiao frowned. "What do you mean by that? Your scouts didn't even enter the interior?" Shuai Junwei forced a smile and said, "At that time, the influential families of the 2 cities were only curious about this place. They sent people to investigate 3 times. The first time, the Wei family of the Earth Dragon City did it alone. The second time, the Xan family, the Wei family, and the Du family of the Earth Dragon City did it together. Those people who were sent to investigate were all dead." Yunxiao's eyelids twitched as he said in surprise, "What? They're all dead?" Shuai Junwei's expression was solemn as he nodded. "He's dead. That's why the 2 cities and 5 clans joined forces for the 3rd time. Our Shuai clan sent Elder Shuai Shanli, a peak 4-star martial emperor expert, with 4 other people to investigate. There were more than 30 people from the 5 clans, and there were as many as 9 martial emperor powerhouses. However, only 4 of them managed to survive and leave. Shuai Shanli wasn't in their group at the moment. He was in another group from the Shuai family, and no one knew where he had been teleported to." Yunxiao's eyes narrowed slightly. "There are so many people here, but none of them have entered the inner area. How did they die? He died from a restriction?" The warrior whom Yunxiao did not like earlier snorted coldly and said sarcastically, "Why must it be a restriction? Can't it be killed by demonic beasts? As you can see, the spiritual qi here is very thin, and even the most powerful restrictions have been reduced to dust after thousands of years." Yunxiao frowned and gave him a cold look as he said, "Even a pig like you knows that the spiritual energy here is thin. Would there be a demonic beast stupider than you who would stay here to cultivate this?" The martial artist's face was covered with a layer of ice. He wanted to refute, but he didn't know how to do so. He could only snort and say, "No matter what you say, the ones that attacked Elder Shanli and the others were demonic beasts, and quite a few at that." Yunxiao frowned and looked puzzled. "Young Master Yun, you're wrong this time," said Shuai Junwei. "This is also a suspicious point that I didn't think of before. The spirit qi here is so thin, so how can there be so many high-level demon beasts? There are mid-level 9th-level demon beasts just in the outer area. It doesn't make sense now." Yunxiao frowned and said, "If that's the case, it's really interesting. We're almost there. I'm also looking forward to it. What interesting things did Yu Yixian leave behind? Shuai Junwei shook his head with a wry smile. He had learned Yunxiao's character after spending a few days with him. It was this kind of unruliness, as if nothing could make him face it seriously. Under those calm eyes, there was always a sense of vicissitudes that made even him feel palpitations. They soon arrived at the location recorded on the time-fixing plate. The 7 of them stopped in the air and looked ahead. It was a boundless plain with pale red gravel spread out on the ground, without any signs of life. Yunxiao's divine sense was extremely powerful, and he soon found that there seemed to be something wrong with the space in front of him, and there was a hidden danger. He pointed his finger in the air, and a ray of light shot out, quickly disappearing in front of him. The space here is very chaotic, said Shuai Junwei. Once we enter, anything can happen. Let's wait for the others here. Yunxiao nodded and looked up at a certain spot in the sky. Someone has already arrived. Come out. Shuai Junwei and the others were shocked and immediately looked in that direction. A moment later, the space there began to fluctuate and several figures appeared in the sky. They were all wearing the same green robe and all of them had expressions of disbelief. Shuai Junwei looked at everyone and snorted coldly, so it's the Wei family of the Earth Dragon City. Is it fun to hide in the void? The patriarch of the Wei family, Wei Dongyang, smiled faintly and said, Lord Junwei must be joking. Then, his eyes fell on Yunxiao and sized him up. He could not help but be secretly surprised. The young man was so young, but he was already a martial emperor. He was so young that it was hard to believe. He couldn't help but size it up a few more times before saying, this little brother looks unfamiliar. How did you see that we were hidden in the void? Can't you just scan it with your divine sense? Yunxiao said indifferently. Are you hiding very well? A man of the Wei family snorted angrily. You must be joking. We used a high-grade hiding talisman. No one can detect us without the divine sense of a 9th-tier alchemist. Are you a 9th-tier alchemist? Let's not talk about whether I'm a 9th-tier alchemist or not, Yunxiao said. In order to hide from others, you're willing to use a high-grade hiding talisman that can cover a large area. Your intention is a little strange, isn't it? Shuai Junwei's expression also changed. He looked at the Wei family in confusion and said coldly, that's right. Brother Dongyang, can you explain? Wei Dongyang gave Yunxiao a meaningful look, then smiled and said, everyone is being overly suspicious. After all, this place is a dangerous place. For the sake of safety, we hid in the void. When we saw you coming, we were planning to come out and meet you. This explanation was too far-fetched, but since the other party was unwilling to say, the Shuai family had no choice. Oh, Shuai Junwei replied indifferently. He obviously did not believe her. Although they had joined forces to search for the treasure, they still had their own thoughts. Moreover, the Wei family was the first family to know about the existence of this area, so they had the most information about it. Wei Dongyang saw that Shuai Junwei didn't believe him and smiled faintly. He didn't continue to explain and said, there has been news in the past 2 days that a shocking change has occurred in Long Valley City. Lord Junwei and the second young master of the Xian family both took a fancy to a maidservant and fought with each other. In the end, the Shuai family destroyed the Xian family. Is this news true? Shuai Junwei's face darkened, and he said while sweating, it's just a rumor. I didn't expect Brother Dongyang to believe it. Do you want me to look down on you? I don't believe these rumors. However, the news that the Xian family was exterminated is true, right? Wei Dongyang's eyes were shining as he stared at Shuai Junwei, not letting go of any expression on his face. Shuai Junwei was also a sly old fox. He laughed and said lazily, Long Valley City's matters will be handled by us. Brother Dongyang knows too much and meddles too much. This is not a good sign. Wei Dongyang cursed under his breath, but he was still smiling. Sir Junwei is right. From the looks of it, the Xian family won't be participating in this joint operation. Seeing that Shuai Junwei didn't reply, which seemed to confirm his thoughts, Wei Dongyang squinted his eyes slightly. No one knew what he was thinking, but then he pointed ahead and said, "This place seems to have become more unstable after our multiple explorations. When we passed by here before, it was hard to notice anything unusual. Now, as long as we pay a little attention, we can find that the space is distorted. This time, we must go deep inside and figure out everything. This time, almost all the experts from our 2 cities have come out. We will definitely be able to get inside. Your Wei family knows the most. You have to share more useful information with us." "Sir Junwei, you're being too polite," Wei Dongyang said in surprise. "We've already announced everything we know." Shuai Junwei snorted. He wouldn't believe this, so he said indifferently, "It has been so long, why are there only people from our 2 families? Where are the people from the Du family and the Qin family?" "They're eager for quick success," Wei Dongyang said with a smile. "They didn't listen to my advice and have already entered." "What?" Shuai Junwei's body trembled, and he said in shock, "We agreed to explore together. Why did they go in first?" Wei Dongyang laughed. "I don't know about this little brother. Maybe they think their strength is enough and don't want to work with us." "Humph. Humph." Shuai Junwei snorted coldly, his expression complicated. From what Sir Junwei said just now, Wei Dongyang said, "I don't think anyone from the Xian family will come. How about we go in too?" Shuai Junwei looked into the distance. There were 2 groups of people, and he did not know why the other group had not arrived. Wei Dongyang saw his hesitation and asked in confusion, "Does Sir Junwei still have any concerns?" Just as Shuai Junwei was about to explain the reason, he suddenly heard Yunxiao's voice in his ear. His face changed slightly, and he said, "No worries. Since that's the case, let's go. We're all newbies here for the first time, so we'll have to trouble you to lead the way." "That's easy," Wei Dongyang said. "We should all work together and advance and retreat together." After he finished speaking, he stepped into the distorted space with the Wei family. They had only taken 1 step when their bodies became distorted in front of the Shuai family, and they could only see a few black dots in the distance. Yunxiao's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the scene in front of him and began to think. Shuai Junwei turned around and asked about the telepathic message. "These people from the Wei family seem to have a guilty conscience," Yunxiao said. "Lord Junwei, you can leave a message here, and we'll understand immediately when the other team comes. If there really is a problem, we can coordinate from the inside and outside, so we won't be forced into a passive position." Shuai Junwei's heart sank slightly. He seemed to realize that this trip would not be simple, and he agreed with Yunxiao's opinion. He took a step forward and immediately cast a few incantation seals to form a golden circular array that slowly disappeared into the void. He then said, "As long as the other group of people arrive here, they will be able to find the message I left behind. Lord Yunxiao, let's go."